Welcome to the Kiwimana Bay. Hi everyone, this is episode 51 of our Beekeeping podcast. This week we are talking about neonicotinoids, thieving mongrels, Louise and a break.
That's right, and we are the Kiwimana Buzz, and I'm Gary, and that is Margaret.
Hi.
And we are beekeepers on the hills of the Waitakere Ranges in West Auckland, New Zealand. Our podcast is about beekeeping, gardening, and political issues, and we have been known to go off on tangents on issues sometimes.
Absolutely. We've got a few tangents we're going on tonight too. So thanks for taking time to come and listen.
Yes, thank you guys, and thank you for listening to our show. You out there, it's fantastic. If this is your first show or you've listened to all our shows, it's fantastic. Thanks for coming along. And the show notes for this podcast are at kiwimana.co.nz/51. So, what's happening at Kiwimana?
Okay, tell us, Gary, what's been happening at Kiwimana?
Okay, well, there's we had our first beekeeping hangout. We had a break over the last couple of months, or the last month.
Tell people what a hangout is.
A hangout is where all beekeepers go out into the forest, hanging trees.
That's not what you told me.
Sorry. No, a hangout is a Google Hangout where you actually go online, and it's like a video conference. And people join in, and they, join into the conversation, and we talk about beekeeping stuff. And last month we had a conversation with a few people, eh?
Yeah, I think we did do a little mention of it last podcast.
We did, but I think it was a bit late for the show. So this next one is on the 3rd of August. So try and come along. There'll be a reference in the show notes for when that is. Yeah,
and a little thing on how to do it, because there was a few technical issues that had to be dealt with.
Yeah, that was mainly on my parts. But if you've got a headset and you've got a mic, you should be okay. We had a few people come and go away, but in the end we recorded the bit with me, you, and Kevin, which was good.
Yeah, that was good. We had good time anyway. But there were a few people listening, so thanks, guys. And let's hope you can make it to the next hangout. We can all hang out together.
Absolutely, and if you want to look at the next one, it's on kiwimana.co.nz/live chat, and we've actually got last month's one on that page, so you can have a look at last month's if you want to see what we talk about. I think it was quite good, eh? Kevin was sort of interviewing us and asking us some questions. Yeah,
I think it was fun, and we're always learning something and sharing information, so it's all good.
Absolutely.
So if you're into beekeeping, you can come and share some stuff with us, so that'd be awesome.
And we've been busy on our break, haven't we? It hasn't all been relaxing in the sun with pina coladas, has it?
Well, no, on our break we were pretty busy, so, what break?
It's true. It's very true. Well, we launched a new product, children's beekeeping suits, which is we've got to start promoting that. And we also met a new supplier, didn't we? Went for a cup of tea.
Yeah, we've got quite a few things that we sort of went over. As you said, we met new suppliers. So the break that we did a lot of apiary work and burnt a lot of rubbish, which Gary loved to do, creating fire and the manly thing. So that was all very good. And some overgrown areas were cleared, so that's awesome. And you talked about the goods going on in our online shop. We have got some new goods, so it's all good. It's all Kiwi-made stuff too.
Absolutely, and there's we were cleaning up the workshop, weren't we, over the holidays? That was quite good fun.
Yeah, we've got a new plan for it, and it was just so it's just so cluttered with all our household stuff because we just don't have enough room in the house. There's no storage space, no loft space, so you can imagine, a lifetime of stuff being put into the garage. And we've been working on that, so a few loads of rubbish to the tip, and there's still some more getting worked through now. And so getting it clear. The new stock, we started that, as we said, Kiwi-made stuff, hive tools, frame holders, hive boxes, and everything you need to get going for the new season. So that's all good. What else have we been doing?
Well, we've discovered a new beekeeping podcast, haven't we? From Solomon Parker. It's called the Treatment-Free Beekeeping. I think it's called the Treatment-Free Beekeeping Podcast.
Well, that sounds interesting, and we'll just see how that goes for him, and wish him all the best of luck.
Absolutely, and he's got a link there for his page. It's actually running from a Facebook page at the moment, and judging from the title, he's going to be heavily involved in treatment-free beekeeping. So, for all you guys out there that are into treatment-free beekeeping, check out Solomon's podcast. Yeah,
and I wish him the best of luck with that because, as I said last podcast, that scares me.
Treatment-free, yes, it does.
Okay, so...
And we've got some interviews coming up. We interviewed Hank Tenicus recently. That's coming up in 2 weeks. We interviewed a few other people too. There's some interesting surprises coming along. So wait there and check it out. And so please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes so you will not miss out on a single one. So what's been happening with you, Margaret?
Well, we had a phone call from one of our from a beekeeper who lives in a local community near to us, but is under the same super city Auckland Council, who let us know about a submission which was presented to the council saying that they didn't think that we should have bees in urban areas because of bee excrement. So we had to rush around and do some research on what was going on, and we had read an article about a local issue between two landowners, one of them which had bees on their land. So it was interesting that it manifested into a submission. Well, that's what we found and established, that it was going to affect all the urban beekeepers and that you wouldn't be able to keep bees in near a boundary of 200 metres. So there was all these other things that were attached to it. There was a submission there which we felt was, if we hadn't done anything about it, it would have probably been put through and without any argument. But what happened is that we had such a huge response. We put out a blog just talking about what had happened and the research we found, and just asked people to consider whether that would affect them. And we talked to landscapers, gardeners, people who love birds, everybody like that, to say, if this goes through, it's possible that it could harm beekeeping.
Urban beekeeping.
Urban beekeeping. And also our gardens and our plants and our fruits and our trees and everything. So we had such a huge response. How many people had a look at it, Gary?
I think about over 5,000 looked at the blog post. And we also got featured on the front page of the newspaper, which was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were approached by New Zealand Herald on Sunday, and we were also approached by Radio New Zealand, but they had to can the report because of that flight MH17
oh, yes,
came into play. So I think that's very sad, and our thoughts go out to those families.
Oh, it was shocking. Stuff.
But we did get another interview, and they put it on the front news of the local Rodney Times, and we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really great work there, Margaret. I think you did very well to get that article out, and I think a lot of people have made responses, and let's hope that the proposal doesn't happen.
Yeah, I got quite a few emails. It was really awesome. So I've talked to some very interesting beekeepers about their views, some very strong about Auckland Council. And I just want to say that Auckland Council are not responsible for the submission. They are responsible for hearing the submission and hearing our submissions. They didn't create this issue as far as we're aware. It was given to them by one of the residents. So, I understand council do get a bit of a hard rap, but, yeah.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's a democratic process, isn't it? And that someone's a citizen or, has said they want to submit something, and the council has to listen to everyone. And
absolutely, and then that's how it all comes to pass. It almost went under the radar, or under the bee's flight path.
Yes.
Did you like that?
I did.
Path?
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So we were lucky to get it. So we're very grateful to those who brought it to us, and thanks everyone for your support. And that's one of the things that if we all, people who keep bees and gardeners and landscape people and everything, we all joined together, because I think it made us such a united front, and all the networks that it went out to, it was just awesome. And I know a few people plagiarised some of my terminologies, but that's good because we put it out there so you could use it. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, awesome, guys. And moving along.
Yeah, what else? What else have you been doing? You've been repairing equipment, I understand.
Yeah, equipment repairs. Our scrub cutters needs to be repaired, and the guy rang me today and said it's going to be $280.
What?
Yeah.
What? This sounds like a new one.
I don't think so, but anyway, we'll discuss that off
We'll
air.
talk about that offline.
Okay, yeah, hive losses. Oh, we had up to 30 hives this year, and we did our splits, and that gave us the 30 hives, and we sold half of them, and we had some at our organic farm, but the losses that we've had this year leaves us with about 8 hives, and even they are under threat at the moment. We've got them screened off, we've got everything going well for them, so we just hope that we've got some hives left at the end of the season. It's been quite tough.
It has, but we have got some strong hives, haven't we? So we should be okay.
Yeah, I think one of the unmanaged apiary in terms of the land management is something I think we've learned, that if you're going to put bees on someone else's land, the landowners need to maintain the area around the hives so that it doesn't get so overgrown, because our hives were absolutely soaked because of the grass. And I don't think we really realised how bad it was leading up to that time. So, partly our fault, but that's just something we've learnt at the time. So we've taken all the hives back here, and we're just consolidating everything. And wasps has been a common denominator in a lot of the losses that I've talked to other beekeepers about. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Has been bad.
I think it made me realise that, when you've got hives in our particular area, our local area, they should really be up on hive stands, because that will keep the air flowing underneath so that the hives don't get damp, because, we all know that damp rises. So, that's my handy hint for that.
Absolutely.
And the mesh boards have been working well, and Gary created some robbing screens which have been, really helpful. And so hive losses, very painful, which leads me on to the next article. Well, next topic, and that's Louise, our wonderful, wonderful goat. She passed away, and she was sick for about a week, and no matter what we did, she didn't get better. So Louise has passed away, and she's the most awesomest goat ever. And it was very, very sad, very painful, situation, because they're like your family, really. And
she was. She was like our pet dog, really.
Everyone loved her, and she was so good with the kids. The kids could just go up and pat her and feed her, and she just didn't mind at all. She was just awesome. So from one week to the next, you just don't know what's going to happen. But our neighbours lost 2 goats in one day as well. And it happened very similar to the way that Louise went. And it says here that basically the risk with goats is that they can get this worm called the barber pole worm. It's like a red red and white worm or something, and it's very bad. It sucks the blood, and then it starts eating the organs of the animal. And if you've got goats, I think you should really make sure you have the right treatment, or worm, or what do they call it?
Deworm?
No,
drench them.
Drench them, yeah, that you've got the right drench that's matrix or something that covers that worm risk, which is barber pole. And, when the symptoms appear, it's so quick, She looked sleepy and then kind of groggy. And once they're at that stage, it's really getting too late. Urgent response is needed to that life-threatening pest. But I think that in saying that, the best cure is prevention. So regularly worm your goats every 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
And treat your goats if you haven't treated them, or just make sure you have got the right treatment. If you haven't got the right treatment, get the one that covers the barber pole and give your goats a treatment straight away. Not getting another goat, though. She was the best goat ever.
No, she was great, and I did love her so. And it's so sad that she died, and we were very heartbroken for a long time, and probably still will be. So
yeah, look out
at her. I won't. Let's not cry on the podcast.
Yeah, I look out at her house and I just think of her calling out to me and saying, "Mum, I want you to move me so I can eat some more grass and stuff." So, but we're going to put her we put her in the ground near the apiary, and we're going to put a garden out there together with
Yeah, she was great. I mean, she didn't even bother she even used to eat right near the hives, and the bees didn't even bother her. So they got on quite well.
Yeah,
surprisingly, they probably couldn't sting her through a thick coat because she was an Angora goat, wasn't she?
Beautiful.
And there's a photo on the show notes here about that. Anyway, so let's move into blog recap.
No, I've got a few more things to cover.
Okay. Well, let's continue talking then.
Okay, personal loss. Wow, losing so many hives that has been painful. This winter has been quite tough, and despite efforts and hives appearing strong, treated and queen right and disease free, they failed. So, I've spoken with some of the commercials that, we know, and they say that they are losing hives in large quantities. Now, most of these commercials treat with synthetic treatments. So, I think there needs to be some studies in New Zealand about who's losing what and what sort of treatments they use, and, information about the areas. The common factor that they've all mentioned is wasps. So that's really interesting. And the other thing is that they've got tiny clusters. That's been interesting, and I've thought, one of my oldest queens, she had a really tiny cluster, and then next thing you know, she's gone. So, and then there's other ones that are really pumping, so we just have to let nature take its course, and I know it's difficult. I find it difficult. Last month, I've mostly kept the inspection boards in because we've had so much heavy rain. I've treated with vaporizing the oxalic acid and have noticed that the bees are still throwing out deformed wing virus bees. So that's not really usual at this time of the year, but it's happening. Other things I've noticed is lots of pollen. Interesting, when the rain has eased up, the bees have been going out and they've been collecting a lot of pollen, and some hives, it's awesome because they've got babies, but it's just been too cold to open the hives. So over the next couple of weeks we'll be looking at that, and this week the girls have been going crazy. They've been trapped in the hives for about 4 days straight, and boy, when they emerged today, the whole apiary was an absolute buzz. They were hounding each other's hives and everything, and I don't know if it's because there's some hives nearby that are hungry or whatever, but they've been really giving it a go. So robbing is rampant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of that going on, isn't there?
Yeah, we fed one hive early on because they were doing all right, but they were a small cluster as well. But they had eggs in there and everything, so that hive we've given a feed. But we'll add some additional feeding trays with sugar syrup that we put thyme with, so that hopefully a boost of thyme in the syrup will help the girls with fighting the varroa. So what should you guys be looking at, you Kiwis out there, beekeepers? Well, big clean-ups. You should have been doing that already. Freezing any frames that had bugs or worms, the wax moth worms in it. And we're adding a fridge and freezer to our workshop so that we can freeze the frames and, help us with managing that. And what else are we doing? Building stock, eh?
Yeah, we're going to be building stock soon. We've got the workshop all sorted. So that's the next step, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've got some beginner kits and frames that we need to assemble with wax and wiring to do.
That's right. Lots of frames to build.
Yeah, and we've already had a full quota of orders on our beginner kits, haven't we?
Yes, I believe we're probably going to sell out of beginner kits.
Yep,
so,
I think they are sold out already.
I think they are. Unless some miracle comes along.
Yeah, but we are able to help people find some bees or nukes or whatever, because we've talked to a few of our commercial friends and they're willing to help us with that. So don't hesitate to ask us about that and we can help you out.
Yep, that's right.
What else? Beginner gear, bee suits, gloves. We've got the children's ones in, the Kiwi Breeze, they're all in. Gloves, we've got them in. Beginner tools, smoker, hive tools, frame holders, vaporizers, the different treatments, organic, both of them. Oxalic acid for vaporization, Epilife VAR. So those are the sort of things that if you need some stock, we can help you.
Yep, just check out the shop on kiwimana.co.nz/shop.
Okay, so what else should you be doing, because you're preparing for the 1st of September. So generally at about this time of the year, you should be monitoring all your hives, whether you do it by natural mite fall, or you do a sugar shake, or you do, what's the other one? The one after the treatment. So you can do natural mite fall before, or a sugar shake before, and then after you've done the treatment, a couple of days later, you can go in and do a fall after treatment.
Yeah, do the same one you've done before, then you can compare the before and after shots, basically.
Yeah, we always recommend, as if you really want to know how successful, do before. Always do mite counts before, so you know what you're dealing with. And then if you notice levels changing and you're aiming for a drop, that's the best way to do it, because then you'll have something to work with. If you don't do before, then you don't know if it's successful or not. Okay?
Absolutely, and I think this next season, going forward, I think we're going to do a sugar shake count every time we do an inspection, because I think that's the only way we're going to get the levels and work out the trends in the hives. So I think we'll look at doing that as well.
Okay, you can put that on your schedule of works, Gary. That's awesome. And for those beginners who are coming into their second season, if your hive has survived, a big well done. Awesome work, And this is a crucial time, is to be prepared for the build-up of spring. And you really want to get 4 weeks of treatment done before the 1st of September. That's, the recommendation. So you've got the full cycle before that huge build-up. And because usually what you do is when you come into spring and the population gets bigger, you want to prepare the hive for being split, and that helps you with varroa management as well.
Absolutely. So New Zealand, it's probably a good idea to start looking at treating in the beginning of August or sort of towards September.
Definitely.
Depending on what what treatments you're going to do, because some of them take 6 weeks, some takes 4, some take 3. So just whatever you do, read the instructions or the ones or from the supplier that you got them from.
The most important thing is to capture the whole brood cycle, which is about 25 days. So, and the laying of new eggs will fall within that 28-day cycle. But, yeah.
Indeed.
The other things you can do too is prepare for the population growth, is to make sure you can add your drone management frames, the third frame in, and that will help when the queen starts laying. If she lays brood in there, then that's a good way to manage if there's any varroa as well. You can take them out and have a good look at them. You don't want to get rid of everything because you do want drones, but you can open the cells and have a look inside to see what varroa presence there is.
Okay, well let's move along, eh? So now we're going to do blog recap. Okay, blog recap. Well, we didn't have any more posts except for that urban beekeeping threatened in Auckland blog post, which had to be a world record for us for the amount of visits. So that was awesome.
A special news flash, really, because we didn't have a lot of time to get all the because it had already been heard and gone through the first part of the process. We had to get it out there really quickly. So you know,
so that was awesome. And the second one was the Michael Bush podcast, which went really well. It's been very successful. And the third one, we had different types of beehives. That's quite an old post, eh?
I think so,
our guest posters, and it's about the different kinds of beehives that you can buy. So thanks everyone for visiting our blog over the last month, and next month we will have more coming up.
I do want to just say a real big thank you for all your emails, for all your phone calls, and introducing yourselves to us as beekeepers or gardeners, and really supporting the whole threat to urban beekeeping, because not only does it affect the urban beekeepers, it also affects those who are in rural areas and countryside living zones in Auckland City. But we want beekeepers to be able to have bees on their private land regardless of what the zoning is. So, and I know that you guys all feel the same. So, yeah, a real big shout out. Thank you so much, and the bees love you for it.
Absolutely, and we will keep you informed of what's happening with that submission. So hopefully that'll get squashed. But we'll
definitely
find out. You know, let's move into the news. Welcome to Kiwi Mana News with Margaret and Gary.
On a cold winter's night in the West Hills of the West Auckland in New Zealand.
Indeed, and last night we lost power about this time, so let's not hope that happens again.
Yeah.
Anyway, first up we have Dunedin scientist wins international honour, and this is Professor Peter Deedon.
Go Kiwi! Go Kiwi!
Yeah, this is fantastic. He's won a Genetic Society of Australasia's Ross Crozier Medal. So that's fantastic, Peter. Thanks for that. Well
done.
And I understand you're on holiday in New York at the moment, but you can listen to this when you get back.
New York, New York.
Don't give up your day job.
I love that town.
We've never been there.
I know.
We do want to go there one day.
One day, Roger Phipps.
It's true. Maybe when honey's more profitable. Anyway, let's move on. And 7 foods that were supposed to be incredibly unhealthy, but are actually anything but. And here we've got coconut oil, coffee, chocolate. Fantastic. Proved to be okay. And yay, chocolate is okay. I wrote that.
That's only 3.
There's others.
Okay. You have to read the article?
You have to read the article to see what the others are.
Okay.
And there's some good stuff going on there. It's all pretty common sense. It's, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a surprise to me what some of them are.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because the kind of companies that should be telling Bayer to go away and other companies that are trying to poison our land are these guys who have all these huge chocolate producing companies and coffee making companies should be really saying no to all those chemicals because they need the bees. They need bees for their industry. So they should be actually taking...
Indeed, and we'll talk about that later on in the show, Dale.
No, I'm talking about it now.
Okay.
So they should take these companies to task because it's going to ruin the industry if the bees are wiped out. Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Gary.
It's so true. It's so true. And here's another story closer to home. Beehives are being stolen around New Zealand. And there's been reports of beehives being stolen from Tauranga and Gisborne. Hey, respect the newsreader.
Sorry.
So this is shocking, isn't it? So people, hives have been stolen in the Gisborne area, Tauranga area. Yeah, thoughts?
Don't steal beehives.
No, because they're like they're like our children.
Yeah, and I think it's too common. I mean, what are these people doing? They're wiping out the bees by doing this, and yeah, I hope they catch them. We have mentioned it a few times on other podcasts, but it just seems to be coming up too regularly.
Yes, it does. So, guys, check out those articles because if you're in the Gisborne or Tauranga area, look out for cheap beehives in case they're selling them. But one of them was actually a guy who was breeding queens, and didn't they steal just the queens?
Yeah, some of the hives that he had were split into like a queen castle. So there was the smaller forms of a hive inside a standard hive.
Oh,
so
okay.
And that was what happened. And yeah, it's terrible because he's breeding his queens for a reason, and it's very painful.
Yeah, so sorry guys that the people that have lost hives there. We'll hopefully we can get some people out there looking for them for you.
And our thoughts go out to you, and just hope you can replenish the stocks with your girls that are left.
Absolutely.
All right, what's the next one?
Well, this one's an article from Rusty, who lives near Seattle, and it's about reports of garden centres are being raised from neonicotinoid-based seeds.
Garden centre plants.
Yeah, garden centre plants, sorry. And she's even seen dead bumblebees on some of the purchased plants she's made.
I love this article. It is so good, and it just brought another level of fright to me, I'm afraid. You know, the scary thing about all these chemicals and...
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? And as I said in the preamble, we interviewed Hank Tenicus recently about neonicotinoids, so that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's quite a scary podcast, isn't it? But you'll be able to hear that soon. It's
interesting because Hank Tenicus is from Holland, and this study was talking about that the Netherlands have been looking into the insecticide side of things and neonicotinoids and everything, and Hank Tenicus, as a toxicologist, has been, wrote that book about it, and it's just so true that you're buying a plant, you think it's so beautiful, and then you take it home and no bee or pollinator wants to go near it. Now, why is that happening? So,
and I think the problem is they are going near them and they're dying. That's a problem with it. For these ones, they're actually the one
listed. She is talking about. She said that the bumblebee was found dead in the plant.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I appreciate that. That's fine from this article. But what they're saying is that a lot of these plants, the seed itself is coated, it's got it inside, it's systemic, it's going into the ground, it's in if you buy a vegetable plant, it's in there, and then who's going to suffer from that? Humans. Why are these companies allowed to do this?
Regulatory failure is the answer.
That's exactly right, and that's quoted from Hank Tenicus.
Absolutely, and it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
And you guys are going to really love that. It's going to really...
rock your socks.
Absolutely, and I think it would be great if our gardeners and gardeners who listen to us or have been involved in the whole situation with the unitary plan, if those circles can have a listen to it, they will be frightened, because he's talking about birds as well.
Yes, absolutely. And the next story, which is also neonicotinoid based, it's about a Harvard study done by Professor Liu about, and this is strengthening the evidence linking pesticides on crops to colony collapse disorder. So this is another study published from the Harvard University about pesticides linking it to colony collapse disorder. And this is an interesting discussion, isn't it? He was actually saying that it doesn't actually reduce the bees' immune system, but what it's doing is it's actually destroying the bees' nervous system. So it's basically making them so they can't remember where their hives are. They do stupid things. They fly the wrong way and things like that. So it's actually destroying their actual nervous system. This is...
Well, I would, as a layman, argue the point that if it's affecting their nervous system, of course it's going to affect their immune system, because it's harming the bee. So all those things are connected. So I doubt that it would affect one part of the bee and not the other. And I think that I have views that their immune system would be harmed by these blimmin' chemicals.
Yeah, no, I agree. But what he's saying is, in this study, there was that all the hives had the same amount of pathogens, and only the ones with the neonicotinoids actually died.
But he's also saying that the untreated ones, what did he say? He says that only one of the untreated colonies was lost, and in that case the bees' bodies were actually inside the hive and showed symptoms that appeared to be caused by a parasite. So if they can't fight a parasite, then I think there is issues with their immune system. So I think they have been exposed to some degree to something for them to be in that place. That's my view, my personal view.
Yeah. Well, I just think this... I actually brought this up with Hank Tenicus, and he said that this is a great study. So, and it's obviously been slagged off by Bayer.
I think it's an awesome study too, and I think it would be very naive of humans to think that one thing doesn't connect to the other. So it's not only about all these chemicals. These chemicals are affecting the entire food chain, the whole system, and I think that's what Hank is bringing up in his book. And the thing that I liked about this article the most is that this last paragraph says, "Our world without honeybees." Now, no one's thinking about that. They use it as a catch-of phrase, that if the bees die out in 4 years, that, the humans are going to die. But, there's some real wake-up calls going on. And if we aren't listening, we're going to be passing this on to our grandchildren. And a lot of the food that they talk about is getting sprayed with all these chemicals, and it's going to hurt our children and their children.
Absolutely,
so
it will.
It does really.
Oh, it's scary, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think that we're the problem.
Yeah, that's like that video that we're going to play at the end, isn't it? That people go, "Oh, what's the biggest questions you can ask?" Go, "What's killing the bees?" And she always answers, "We are." But that's coming up. It's
so true, definitely, and I think that's a real thought. When I read this article, I went to one of the highlighted things where it talks about 3 neonicotinoids, where it says banned in the European Union. Click on that, guys, and have a read through that, and that'll lead you to some other stories and really informative about what's going on. So enjoy that one, and it'll give you some conversation with your friends, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and it's called the articles from the Business Insider in Australia. So yeah, I think that's the real key here, guys, is to tell people that don't normally listen to these kind of things, because they don't know.
Yeah, that's the ordinary person that buys fly spray or buys
Confidor,
to do the one weed spray and all this sort of stuff, who'd rather just spray the crap out of the verge than mow
family
it.
show. Can't say crap.
Can't I?
No, and that's okay. And yeah, exactly. I mean, the people that do that, and then they're the same people that complain that there's no bees around.
Well, I mean, we've got a neighbour just down the road that sprayed the whole grass verge, and sort of happened around the same time where there was a few things going on in our apiary. So who knows? It's
true. It's very, very true.
So my proactive response to that is to put a flyer out for all the people who are living in our valley and pop it in their letterbox to let them know that,
with
if
a copy of Hank's CD.
Indeed, about, what's happening when they just do something that they think is so simple, and how, because where that person sprayed is at the top of the road, so that water, which we get a lot of, is going to rush that down into that waterway that goes down into the valley.
Yes, that's a good point. Good point indeed.
What's the next one?
Next one is Michigan residents lose their right to farm. This is a new ruling by the Michigan Commission of Agriculture and Rural Development. That's an oxymoron. And they are actually reducing the amount of people that can claim on the Right to Farm Act. And the Right to Farm Act was created in 1981 to protect farmers having lawsuits against them by urban or city people coming to live in the country and complaining about country living. That sounds familiar to what's happening in Auckland, doesn't it?
Oh boy, that is so true, man. But the thing is, shame on the Michigan Residents Association, or is it the council?
No, it's the Commission of Agriculture. So I'm guessing it's like a state agricultural department.
Oh, shame on Michigan Commission of Agricultural and Rural Development that you have done this, because you should be encouraging education with your urban neighbours and removing their right to do that, in the sense that what are those people in the agriculture area doing that is so dangerous? Seriously, are they using chemicals?
No, it doesn't really go into why they want to do this. They're just saying that, well, we're changing it. Basically, they're saying that if you've got 13 houses in your area, or you're 250 feet from another house, you can't claim the Right to Farm Act anymore.
Some people are saying that it's attempting to make it more urban with anti-farming ordinances.
Yeah.
So they're trying to increase, I'd say, from what I could read into that, the urban limits. Perhaps it's a way of the developers getting their way to have the land, more urban spread or something, which is it could be related to some of the issues we've had recently here in
Auckland. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're from Michigan, guys, or guy or gal, can you leave a comment on the show notes? It's http://kiwimana.co.nz/51. Just leave a comment. And why is your commissioner done this? That's my question.
And I love the comment that they talk about that they produce food with integrity. So if they're doing everything that's 100% natural, and we like to say it's beyond organic. That's Randy Bushler of Shady Grove Farm.
Yeah.
He's quoted in this article, and I think he is a prime example of people who love their piece of land. They love their animals. They love to keep it healthy. They don't want to do anything that's harmful. So if I was an urban person and I was living on the edge of a farm, I'd want to know that what they're doing is 100% healthy. So is it more about making sure the farms are healthy rather than allowing the urban people to dictate where the farms are and if they're not healthy or whatever? I don't know.
Absolutely. And he also brought up an issue about the impending antibiotic epidemic or something, and it's coming along. And apparently, because a lot of animals have been fed antibiotics,
Yes.
and it's making they're making antibiotics useless to humans. Because every time you eat a chicken or something, you actually get a slow dose of antibiotics. So that was quite interesting, what you raised there.
Yeah, and they say that there's the animal which, they did talk about it in New Zealand recently, that chickens are the ones who receive the most antibiotics. Probably because they're walking around in chicken feces. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, well, let's move on to questions from you after this little nature thing. Can you guess what this is? Any ideas?
Kakapo?
No, it's a tui. It's a tui.
There must be a tui from a different area because it does sound like
it's not a Waitakere tui. Yeah, everyone,
that's interesting.
That is a tui bird. It's a native bird of New Zealand. So questions from you. The first one we got from Noel in South Australia. He actually runs the South Australian it's like a beekeeping organisation. We'll have the link in the show notes for that. His question was, do you replace frames in your colonies on a regular basis?
Gary, your thoughts?
Yes, we do.
How often would you do that?
I think we usually do it every 2 years.
I heard it was 3 years.
2 to 3 years, depending on how efficient we are. We actually started stamping the year that we built the frame into the top of them quite often, but that kind of went by the wayside, didn't it? Yeah,
because we had some left over from a couple of seasons and we hadn't put them in, so... Yeah, that means re-stamping them, I guess.
Yeah, I guess maybe what you could do is, as you put them into a hive, you write the year on the side or something.
The methodology behind changing frames is all about that when you have a particularly brood frames which become quite dark, if they're early on in their life, the actual frame itself, they get a little bit dark. The queens quite like them because they are dark. But over time, with all the layers of new bees coming from the cells, they leave a layer in there. And within those layers, there is concern that there are viruses being trapped in there. So that was the theory behind that methodology, is to change those frames every 3 years or 2 to 3 years and make sure that they keep getting fresh comb to draw and fresh wax. So, but, if you're treating with synthetic treatments, then you're leaving that in there a longer period. And the problem with having, I guess you could question, newer comb might have more chemicals in it. So it's a...
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know products like Epistan actually absorbs inside the wax, and the other consideration is pesticides in the environment. But the good thing about Noel being in Australia is they don't treat for varroa, do they? Because they don't have varroa mites. So that's an awesome, cool thing for you guys.
That's interesting because we have had contact with a Kiwi guy who is a beekeeper in Australia now, and we're going to put out a few blogs about beekeeping in Japan, beekeeping in Solomon Islands, beekeeping in Australia, and beekeeping down in the South Island. Just some basic, not really information, but just these beekeepers just giving us a little story about their beekeeping that they're up to. And the Australian guy talked about gamma radiation, so that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. And the next question is it okay to use a mesh board in winter? And that was from Anne in Auckland, who just bought a mesh board from us, hasn't she? And I would say yes. I'd say in fact it's probably a beneficial thing because it makes the hive not so damp. And I just make sure there's no prevailing wind blowing in it.
Yeah, I think with our particular mesh borders, we've got 3-sided. So you've got the back of it has no side, but that's where you put the inspection board in, which closes up any draft that you could get up the back passage, so to speak.
Up your jacksie.
Oh, I didn't say that. God, Gary, this is a family show.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, yeah, but because we've had so much rain, I actually have left the inspection boards in at the moment because it's been so wet. So when you get the wet, you get a lot of damp. With the hives, our hives are actually up on hive stands, so they get a bit of airflow, so that stops that issue. But yes, definitely use them in all year round. Use your inspection board for monitoring natural mite fall, and afterwards you just spray canola oil on it for the mites to stick to it. Some people don't do that, and then they say, oh, we've got no mites, but they haven't put any oil on the inspection board. So yeah, definitely use it all year round. Don't leave it in there all the time, because the idea is to ventilate the hive.
Absolutely. Because someone was telling me once that they actually observed ants crawling onto the inspection board and grabbing a varroa mite and taking it back to the nest.
Awesome, but I hate ants anyway. I don't spray them, by the way.
But the ant movie was a great movie, wasn't it? Woody Allen, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, they do get rid of a lot of rubbish. Not as good as the bee movie,
but it's pretty good.
But they've got their own defence mechanism. Anyway, yes. We're going off in a tangent.
We are, and we're coming up to an hour here, so we must.
So we hope that answers your question, Anne.
Yep, and the next one is Lacey in Christchurch. She asked, or it could be he, I'm not sure. How many times can you split a beehive? Well, that depends, doesn't it? Depends on how the season is, how long you've got to go till autumn starts. I would say every time you've got 9 frames of brood?
I thought it was 7.
6 or 7 frames of brood, you can probably split it, but just be aware of what the weather's coming up to do, because you need to have enough time for them to build up again to get ready for the autumn or the winter months. Especially in Christchurch, I would say you'd have a lot colder conditions in Auckland.
Yeah, I think that if you monitor the temperature changes, once you start to see something around 14 degrees coming up more regularly, then you should be checking the hive to see what the population's doing. And exactly as Gary said, is you need to have enough brood in there to be able to do the split. Some commercial guys will do queen castles, like that other guy we mentioned earlier.
Like our one.
Yeah, like the one you built.
Yeah.
But use it anyway. Yeah, so some people do queen castles where you take a frame and you put, some bees in there and you let the queen build up, a frame of honey and a bit of pollen, and they do it that way, and they just keep splitting and splitting and splitting. But it does mean that if you're taking it from an original hive, your hive is going to become weaker because there's not as much. So you really need to have the right gear as well. So you need to have smaller boxes available, like maybe split your 3/4 or your full depths in half or 3, and do the entrances on different sides so that they're not all coming through the same one.
Yeah. I mean, have a look at it on our blog and search for Queen Castle. You'll see the photo of our one. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I think that we generally just do 1 split per hive from our genetics. But, we haven't gone that far into that. We would rather just go and get a nuke or get a swarm.
I think this year we'll be splitting a lot more.
Yeah, I want to try because we've still got some old genetics there that we've had for quite a time, for the 4 years, and those genetics are still doing really well. That's one of our strongest hives. So I'd like to get that one split and have one for our apiary again. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. And the next question is how to keep Japanese hornets out of beehives, and that is from Tomako in Japan.
Don't live in Japan.
But he does live in Japan. I to be honest with you, Tomako, I have no idea. but I know that James, who keeps bees in Japan, has this specially designed entrance trap kind of device thing. And we are hoping to speak to James soon on the podcast. So we will bring up and ask him that as well. Maybe he can, show or have some photos of that and we can include in the show notes. So that's coming soon.
Because he did mention about that the hornet's quite big.
Yeah, it's about twice as big as a bee. I used to think they were the same size as wasps, but they're a lot bigger, eh?
Yeah, I think that, check out our podcast coming up because we'll specifically ask him your question and, have a listen to see what he says. But, the whole principle behind it is that the hornet is a lot bigger than the bee. So you need to look at the entrance side of things and maybe have a false entrance.
I think that's what his trap he's got. It has like a the main entrance they can get in, but they can't get out or something. There's some way that it works, but he will tell us more. We have to get him on the show, but he's unfortunately busy for a bit doing some stuff with his school, so he'll get in touch with us soon. Anyway,
okay, thanks to Miko for your questions, Lacey
yes,
in Christchurch, and Noel in South Australia, and Anne in Auckland. We really appreciate all your questions, and you're the reason why we do a lot of the things that we do, because we want people to be able to share information and learn new stuff and get help with what's going on with them. So keep it coming, guys. Awesome.
Thank you. And we've got one more too, Christina from Dallas.
Oh, Christiana.
Sorry.
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. There's a podcasting convention going on there soon.
How can we help you, Christiana?
How to make firelighters with beeswax.
Oh, now, you've done this, eh?
I have. There's an article about that. We basically use cheesecloth to strain the beeswax when you're processing it, and they make fantastic fire starters, don't they? Yeah,
it's like a cotton swab type.
Yeah, it's like a cotton
fabric. Yeah, it's quite open mesh. A lot of people, wrap cheeses in it. A lot of people use it for straining wax.
That's what we do around here.
Indeed.
And that works really well. There's an article there. What I'll do is I'll include that article in the show notes and under your question there, Christina.
So yes, it's very simple. Yeah, basically you melt the wax and put the cotton cloth into the wax, and as it dries you can cut it up into strips.
Yep, and it's great for lighting smokers and fires,
awesome.
I suppose.
Yeah.
And if you've got any questions, email the team at question@kiwimana.co.nz and we will hopefully respond next podcast. Or give it a go anyway, won't we?
Absolutely, we'll do our best.
And let's have a musical interlude and we'll be back in a sec. Right, blog post coming soon. Well, I know there's one about New Zealand podcasts that we haven't released yet. What ones have you got coming out soon, Dale?
Well, we were talking about the different beekeepers who have sent us emails, so I'll put them into a blog post, I think. So you can have a look at some of the photos they've sent. We've asked for their permission and it's all going through, so that's all good. And one of the other things is about, what we've been doing here at Kiwimana Apiary, and, there's lots coming up. We haven't released our beekeeping programs yet, or our beekeeping courses, because we're still working on that.
I've had a lot of questions about those, so we have to get those out too.
Yeah, I think that probably we will look at those ones and then we'll announce them as we go along, getting closer to those times.
Absolutely. Let's move on to feedback from you guys. It was a cold winter morning. And we got
it's
some
a
feedback.
Winter's evening and the rain is pouring and the grass is not growing.
That song is great. We got a iTunes review.
Yay!
From Raven Scroif. 5 stars from the United States of America. He says, Really good podcast. Lots of news about beekeeping. Also, if you want to play an awesome drinking game.
Oh, I forgot that. I was going to talk about that. Yeah. She loves me. Yeah. Enjoy that one, Raven Skype.
Yeah, if you want to play an awesome drinking game, drink every time Gary or Margaret says yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah, baby.
Yep. So
enjoy.
So, Ravenscroft, you're probably quite drunk now. You'll miss the rest of the show. But thanks for your review, guys.
And we loved it. We loved it. And if you've got a review, leave it on iTunes, people. It's kiwimana.co.nz/iTunes. And our contact details are, our website is kiwimana.co.nz, and you can email us at info@kiwimana.co.nz. And if you wanted to email Margaret, it's margaret@kiwimana.co.nz, and it's
Gary@kiwimana.co.nz.
Thanks, guys.
And we have a weekly newsletter, and it tells you about new podcasts, blog posts, emergency events like this recent submission issue. So you can go to kiwimana.co.nz/sign up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've had a huge amount of people joining up over this to do with this political issue. So, yeah thanks everyone. And, once again, we really appreciate all your feedback, because that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely. And so that's the end of our show. But after the After Hours bonus, we've got Sarah Reed-Laird. Reed-Laird, that's a great name.
Sarah Reed-Laird.
And she's got a TEDx discussion about we can save the bees together. This is a great discussion. So listen for that after the show notes, and after the ending. And if you want to watch the video, you can watch the video on the show notes, which are kiwimana.co.nz/51. So thanks, guys, for listening.
Thank you so much for taking time to a listen to our 51st episode.
Yes, indeed. And we'll here's the interview. Here's the discussion from Sarah after the.
See ya.
How long have you been a beekeeper? What is killing the bees? These are the two questions that I get asked almost every single day. Well, I think I was born a beekeeper, and we're killing the bees. Those are the short answers. Now I'm going to give you the long answers. For the answer to the first question, let's rewind back a few years. My first sentence was, I pooped my pants because you took my squirt gun away from me. So when I wasn't shooting my mom in the face with my squirt gun, I was out in the backyard hunting bugs. And one morning, I squirted a honeybee on a dandelion. And I instantly felt bad, because I found out when bees are wet, they can't fly. So I picked her up to dry her off, and zing! Did I get the shock of my life. My first honeybee sting. So I was just completely shocked and fascinated that something so small could be so incredibly powerful. My next experience with honeybees was a bit more positive. My aunt had a small farm in the backwoods of Southern Oregon, and a friend of hers had a few honeybee hives, couple honeybee hives on this farm. I was, again, fascinated with the bees, fascinated with the beekeeper. I loved his smoker and his duct-taped coveralls and his veil. I would follow him around, and one hot, sunny summer day, he gave me a chunk of honeycomb straight from the beehive. Have you ever had warm honey straight from the beehive? It is amazing. Put it on your bucket list. It is like taking a trip to Nirvana and a rocket ship with your mouth. In one bite, you get to thankfully devour the work of hundreds of honeybees and thousands of flowers. These experiences planted a seed with me, a seed of fascination, and I carried that with me for quite a long time. Fast forward to the end of high school. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I didn't have a lot of direction. My life felt like a blank slate. I tried a lot of things. College, a few times. Boyfriends, lots of them. I went out to Colorado and tried my hand at ski school and horse wrangling. I even went down to Hollywood. And eventually, I made my way up to Alaska for a couple years, where I worked on a commercial fishing boat. I was a firefighter. I did search and rescue. And I was a hiking guide. But none of these things really held on to me. If you can believe it, none of them captivated me. I didn't feel like any of these things were my passion or what I really should be doing. None of them felt like the biggest adventure I could have. So one day, I hit the glass ceiling in my bustling Alaskan town of 700. And I decided to give one last stab at my college degree. I knew I wanted to study resource conservation, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to study. That was until I found Montana. The University of Montana had beekeeping as a work study. Beekeeping as a work study. How cool is that? My decision was instantly made. My path was clear. I headed south, and I went to UM. And my first beekeeping mentor was a UM honeybee researcher named Scott Debnam, also known as the shirtless bee whisperer. With only my hands sticking out of my full head-to-toe suit, I would routinely get stung. And Scott, wearing half the clothes as me, would never get stung. He would tell me, Sarah, the bees might really like you, but they love me. Challenge accepted, Scott. I was going to get the bees to love me too. So, in this journey to get the bees to love me, I found some really cool things, a few of which I'd love to share with you today. Honeybees can be trained to sniff bombs. True story. Bee venom is actually used to destroy HIV cells. And honeybees prefer flowers with caffeinated nectar. It actually helps them work a little faster and remember more. True story. Honeybees also recognize human faces. And yes, that is me kissing the business end of a honeybee. So, in this quest, in this journey, in this adventure to get my honeybees to love me, I ended up completely falling in love with them. And I'm proud to say that I am now in my first ever successful long-term relationship with the honeybee. And no, it's not uncommon for a beekeeper to be walking around with a queen bee in her pocket this time of year. So, that is my story with the honeybees. What about your story with the honeybees? It doesn't matter if you have a really deep intrinsic connection to them like I do. You need your honeybees. 1 out of every 3 bites of food you eat is pollinated by a honeybee. They bring vitamins and minerals and healthy fats to your table. They bring color and flavor to your plates and to your lives. If we lived in a world without honeybees, we would live in a world with a lot of rice, a lot of oatmeal, a lot of creamed corn, and also scurvy. But our honeybees are in trouble. It doesn't matter if you have 2 hives in your backyard or 20,000 hives spread all across the country. Our honeybees are in trouble. This is the hardest time to keep your bees and keep your bees alive and healthy that we have ever had. In fact, if we were to line up all of the bee boxes, so the bee hives where a colony of bees lives, all of the bees that have been lost since this colony collapse disorder started in about 2006, those boxes would stretch from Bend, Oregon to Madison, Wisconsin. So what is killing the honeybees? Is it a mystery malady like we read above the fold every couple of weeks or hear in the news? Just yesterday morning, I heard a story on the news, and it was started off by saying, mystery bee collapse is happening again. Is it a mystery what's killing our honeybees? No, it's not a mystery. It's the varroa mite. It's chemically intensive monocrop farming. It's climate change. And it's habitat loss. So habitat loss to me is a biggie because it makes everything else up here, it magnifies it. It makes all those other issues worse and harder to deal with. We oftentimes don't think of the Midwest when we think of honeybees. When we think of prairie, we think of kind of expansive grassland. Well, that expansive grassland is full of flowers. Flowers as far as the eye can see. And flowers are honeybee food. In fact, the majority of our bees and our beekeepers live in the Midwest. However, we are losing our honeybee food. We're losing our habitat. We're losing our honeybee habitat. Just in North and South Dakota and Nebraska, since 2006, so that's less than a decade, we have lost 1.5 million acres of honeybee forage, of prairie, to fence row corn and soy plantings. 1.5 million acres is the size of 767 Deschutes counties, gone in less than 10 years. And that's not only honeybee food, that's habitat for our native bees, it's habitat for our birds, it's habitat for our butterflies, our amphibians, and a lot of other wildlife. So, there is good news. There is good news. There is a upswell of backyard beekeepers right now, which is awesome for the local farming movement and the urban farming movement, because those community gardens and those rooftop gardens really need pollination. However, I'm not really sure if community gardens and rooftop gardens are going to feed 7 billion mouths. So, is sustainable bee-friendly agriculture doable on a very large scale? I say absolutely. A colleague of mine worked with a farmer in the highly industrialized area in the Midwest of Minnesota. They took 2,000 acres of a seed farm. The farmer's goal was to increase production and save money. That's what all farmers want, to increase production and save money. So they went at it in a bit more of a holistic manner. They monitored before they sprayed pesticides. They reduced tillage to protect their little ground nesting bee families. They used herbicides selectively to avoid damaging the beneficial insects. They burned weeds to reduce chemical usage. And they reduced mowing to create buffer strips, really happy places for those bees and those beneficial bugs to live. Well, the inputs went down, the profits went up. They saved money on pesticides, herbicides, they had free pollinators. This is good for farmers, it's good for bees, and it's good for you and me and our health as well. So I really encourage you to support our farmers and support our land managers to farm the best, conserve the rest. It can happen, and it can happen on a large scale. We need a paradigm shift in the way we eat food. Right now, we only eat 5%. 5% of our food is organically farmed. Only 5%. We need a paradigm shift in the way we eat our food. And you get to be part of that. It's really awesome to live at this time in this place where we get to be part of the solution. We get to get that pendulum swinging back in the right direction. So now, I am going to give you my top 4 tips on how to save the bees. Tip number 1. This is something we need to do on a national level. Ask for good honeybee policy. Contact your lawmakers. Contact the White House. Ask them what they're doing for honeybees. They really do want to hear from you. They really do. Please call them. Send them an email. Ask them what they're doing for bee policy. On a community level, vote with your fork. Michael Pollan said, "We change the natural world by our eating choices more than anything else we do." We change the natural world by our eating choices more than anything else that we do. So vote with your fork. Plant flowers. Everybody can do this. On a household level, everybody can do this. Plant flowers with your kids, with your partner, with your roommates. Plant flowers. Everybody in this room has access to some dirt and some seeds at some levels. Plant flowers on ranches. Plant flowers on farms. Plant flowers in your front yard, in your backyard, along fence rows, in your garden, in a window box, in a planter on your front porch. Plant flowers. The backyard beekeeping movement is awesome, but those girls need support. It takes bees visiting approximately 2 million flowers to fill up this jar of honey. 2 million flowers to fill up this one jar of honey. If everybody in this room was to plant this little packet of flower seeds, we would have 70,000 square feet of additional flowers. 70,000 square feet of additional bee food. For our girls, plant flowers. And number 4, make a space in your heart. This is what you can do at an individual level. Please love your bees, at least just a little bit. Appreciate them for what they do for you. Adopt a bee, plant a seed. Thank you.